The biggest part about branding to me is messaging. It's talking about who you are and how you serve your clients. If that messaging is not hitting those ideal clients where they're at, there's a disconnect. And so your brand is not going to attract the clients you want.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business.
Hey, it's Rebecca, and you are listening to Resilient by Design. Today, I'm diving into, is it really worth it to invest in a rebrand? Do I need a logo? Do I need a new logo? Do I need a new website? What about my Instagram? I'm going to share my thoughts on the whole concept of rebranding. Not branding, but rebranding. When you decide it's time for a refresh, you want new colors, you want a new logo, new font, new website, new vibe on Instagram, or whatever it is. So I'm going to walk you through specifically today why and when you need to rebrand, and then also when you don't. Because I think that a lot of the times we get distracted by what other people are doing and we think we need to do it too. And it actually can hold us back. So here we go, diving into all things branding. Okay, so let's talk about this idea of a rebrand. Truthfully, I think that branding is important. I think it's part of what sets you apart from your competition. Brand is what tells your story. It's more than just pretty colors on a page. And I'm going to say probably the first myth that is the most common myth in a creative industry is that brand is just your fonts, your logo, your colors, and then it's visual, because brand is so much more than the visual. But for the purposes of today's podcast, I just want to talk about this idea of rebranding in the sense of the visual. When design firm owners, creatives feel the need to update or change their website and invest money into visually making everything more aesthetic. You know, I got some really great advice early in my career. And I don't remember from who, but it was essentially a coach who said, why do you want to redo your website, Rebecca? Because I think at the time I was saying, I'm trying to think of who this was. I don't know if it was Andrea Freeman or Aria. I don't know who it was. But I remember talking with someone who I saw as a mentor and authority on this subject and sort of was like, I need to change my website. Like I just, it's outdated. And they stopped me in my tracks and they said, why? Are you still getting clients? I'm like, yep, definitely. Yep. We're still getting inquiries. Okay. How much is it going to cost? And is it really worth it? And it really got me to pause and think. And since that time, I hadn't touched my website. I'm not going to lie, because what I realized is that sometimes there are other areas that need the investment of my time and money more than the visual that I'm putting out into the world. And so as a result, I've held back from multiple times, like I'm telling you, like probably at least once a year, if not more, of multiple times when I just felt the urge and the instinct to make everything look prettier. I would see a colleague do a new website or look at my new logo and they would have it on, and in a letterpress. Or I would see someone update their colors on their Instagram graphics. And I would think, oh, I need to refresh. And then I would get distracted focusing on it, and it would pull me away from the things that were moving the needle. So I made a decision a few years ago not to update my interior design website. Anyone who I talked to was like, why are you going to do that? Your website looks pretty good. I don't think it's worth it. And they were right, because I have still been getting inundated with interior design clients, and I haven't touched my interior design website in 6 years. 6 whole freaking years. Now, I have put up new photography from new projects, but quite honestly, it doesn't even have my most recent projects. The copy, yeah, it could use an update. But here's the thing, sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The amount of time and energy that goes into a rebrand, I can tell you, is a lot because I am currently in the messy middle of some version of a rebrand. So I'm going to share with you my experiences, give you my takeaways, because I know there's probably a lot of you out there who are thinking, business is slowing down, or, I really want to elevate my business. I don't feel like the visual of my brand is representing the type of projects I want to do. And I totally get it. I get it. And so I'm going to walk you through when I believe you need and are ready for a rebrand, and then when you probably don't need one. I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast already. So if this idea and this conversation really interests you, I recommend you go back to episode number 79, The Journey of Rebranding Your Business with Cristalee Brinkworth. She was a student of my momentum marketing course that I used to have. And doing the course, she had some aha moments and she changed her business name. She changed the look of everything and the aesthetic. And she talks about her journey to rebranding her business and her experience going through that. So if that's something you want to hear about from someone who went through a complete transformation, go back and listen to episode number 79 of this podcast. Okay, because there are times when it is useful. So my story, let's just start there. I just mentioned to you that, for the longest time I kept saying I need to update my website. And it would be one of those things that I would put as an annual goal. And then what would happen is it would just keep falling off. It just obviously wasn't a priority because I would want to do it. I just didn't have the capacity or the resources or the bandwidth to take on updating the website or moving the website to like WordPress because it was always on Squarespace. And I got frustrated. I'm like, I need to move it to WordPress. My husband says WordPress is better than Squarespace. This is so frustrating. Like I have to move it. So when I started my coaching business and this podcast, I created a new website on WordPress. And I'm like, this is going to be so much better because Chris said it's better. I hired a very expensive company out of the US to create that website. I paid approximately $15,000. Yep, you heard that right. You heard it here first. Because I thought if I pay for it, it'll be amazing. And they made a lovely website. And at the time of this recording, that is still the website that is up. But because it was a custom coded WordPress site, there were certain things that I couldn't tweak or change, like the colors of the buttons, just the color blocks behind copy. I couldn't really change formatting. Updating it was a little bit cumbersome. And so I realized that all this time when I wanted to move my design site to WordPress because somebody who was an authority in that area thought it was better, I realized the platform itself is not necessarily better. It depends who you are and what you're going to use it for. And turns out I really needed ongoing support from that web company to update the site. So I realized, okay, this feels like a bit of a convoluted story, but I realized that my interior design website, I don't need to move it off of Squarespace to WordPress. The grass is always greener. For the purposes of what I need my interior design website to do, it's essentially a portfolio and an information place to keep information. Squarespace is fine. So I learned my lesson in a good and hard way that I wasn't ready to make that big leap. So I left it another year or so. Earlier this year, I met with a brand coach. It was fantastic. It was a great experience. It was a full day intensive where I flew down to Charleston and we dissected my brand. And it was interesting because I went into it thinking, okay, we're going to get super clear on like the visual and like, how are we going to make everything look cohesive between the design business and the coaching business? And what it was actually more about was the messaging, the brand message, who I am. How do I help people? How can we make everything more cohesive in that sense? And so that's what really got me thinking about, okay, brand is so much more than wasting time redoing your website or redoing whatever you have to do. But after that, that brand workshop that I did, I came back home, was like, okay, I'm ready to make updates and tweaks to my website. I think it's time to bring everything under one sort of branding look and make it all cohesive. But let me tell you, I hired someone to help with my website. It is still, at the time of this recording, ongoing. It has been so insanely time consuming for me to work with people to come up with the new look, the refreshed version, the fonts, the this, the that months have passed. And even though I know I need to make updates to my design website because it is definitely getting outdated with the copy, I want to talk about that in a minute, I realized, thank God I put off updating that design site for so long, because this is a really time-consuming endeavor. And quite frankly, where I'm at right now, I almost wonder if it's been worth the time, because there are so many other more important things that will move the needle for me with sales than making everything prettier and cohesive. Ultimately, it's about the message. And yes, we need it to be beautiful. Anyhow, when this podcast comes out, you guys will see when and if we have a rebrand. But the reality is, I think it's just going to be small tweaks. I don't need to focus on that, because it's more about the messaging, and it's more about how I'm showing up to support my design clients and how I'm showing up to support all of you inside my courses and my membership. So here's when I believe you need a rebrand, because though my story might be slightly cautionary with the $15,000 and then spending more money to change the website again, less than 2 years later, and still feeling frustrated in it being a super time consuming thing, I still believe there are times when it's necessary. And so let me tell you, I believe, and this is something you'll get out of that episode with Cristalee, episode 79 that I mentioned just earlier, but I believe that there are 4 times where you would want to consider a rebrand. So as you're listening, I want you to think about if this is you, and then I'm going to share the 4 times when I believe you do not need a rebrand, you might just need something else. So first, you need to rebrand if your offerings have changed. If you are no longer offering consultation only or color consultations or designer by your side, and you now want to offer full service interior design, you need to update the branding. You need to make it super clear how you help people, how you show up. And so though it may not be an overhaul in aesthetic, it is going to attract a different client. And that brings me to the next point or time when you would need to rebrand is when your ideal client has shifted. And this is what happened with Cristalee. She realized that her branding, even her company name, her messaging was not attracting the client that she wanted to serve. So when your offerings have changed and you know that you are trying to attract a different ideal client, that's when you really need to do a deep dive and look at your branding, look at your messaging. You can look at the aesthetics. Is it professional looking? Are the colors punchy? Is it you, right? Maybe you hired somebody to do it for you and you're like, that's not really my personality. And you want your personality to show through because you want to attract certain clients. The biggest part about branding to me is messaging. It's talking about who you are and how you serve your clients. If that messaging is not hitting those ideal clients where they're at, there's a disconnect. And so your brand is not going to attract the clients you want.
All right, designers, if you have been looking for a millwork company, a custom kitchen fabricator, then you have to check out Devix Kitchens. They will make your life easier without all that freaking drama. Damon, the man behind Devix Kitchens, has streamlined the entire process. Hello, you know I love a good process. Making your project a breeze from start to finish. Seriously though, you will wonder why you haven't found them sooner. If you need to reach out with questions or ideas, you can always give Damon a call or even send him a text message. He is that easy to work with. He personally supervises every single project. He is never going to leave you hanging. But what about the installation, right? Because sounds great on paper, but then sometimes it can be frustrating. Not with Devix Kitchens. They only hire skilled installers who not only get the job done, but do so with the utmost politeness. And guess what? They are masters at leaving zero mess behind. Hallelujah.
Your clients are going to be wowed, and you won't even have to deal with any embarrassing situation. No drama here. They are as reliable as it comes. Devix Kitchens will ship anywhere in North America. Go check them out and give Damon a call. The third time or place where you need to rebrand is if you're starting a brand new company. If you are in one industry and you're moving to another industry, or if you are potentially changing, I mean, we mentioned the changing your service offerings, but like maybe you're starting like a brand new company in the sense of you want to now offer e-design and create a completely separate company. I think there's truly, now this is my opinion, but I think there's a lot of value in creating a separate brand for that. It doesn't necessarily mean a separate Instagram account, but you might want to make sure that there's something that's really clear because that needs to speak to a different audience. And then lastly, if you are truly outdated in what you've done for your industry and your site and your Instagram and your general brand is not converting to clients, then that might consider a reshifting of things, a rebranding. Do you need to go more high end? Are you showing up in a way that is not attracting clients? Because if you're outdated, like I'm talking like outdated, like your site is old, maybe you don't even have an Instagram, and when you do post, it's like grainy, dark photos, like you don't have professional photography. That would be a great time to almost like relaunch your business, rebrand it, get brand photography. You know, Jenna Kutcher just talked about this on a podcast of hers that I listened to, where she talked about how she did a brand new branding photography session with really a ton of intentionality behind it, where they took photos of her and every 5 minutes she changed her outfit, which I highly recommend. This is how I've been doing my brand shoots for years. So you can maximize your time with that photographer and have a real breadth of photography to use. You know, get new brand images. Maybe you need to professionally photograph some of the spaces you've done. Maybe the fonts you're using are super outdated, but I'm talking about like super outdated, not 5 years ago outdated, like super outdated. It's funny, I'll be driving in the car with my husband and he's in marketing. And there's a company that back in the day, maybe a decade ago, he and his partner designed a logo for. And, you know, we're driving by it and he looks at the logo and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe they're still using that awful logo. And I turned to him and I was like, I don't think it's awful. What's wrong with it? It's just the letters. It's in a sans serif font and everybody recognizes what it is. And that to me like hit me as soon as I said to him how I didn't think it was that bad. Was a great reminder to me. We are such critics of our own stuff, of our own self, of our own creations. And we're always trying to be like one step ahead, right? We're trying to keep up with the design trends and keep up with everything. We want to be like top notch, top dollar. But quite frankly, a lot of the time, the average person or your client isn't paying attention to whether that's a serif or a sans serif font. They are more interested in how you can help them and hearing the testimonials from your previous clients. Let's take that to transition into when you don't need to rebrand. I don't think you need a total overhaul rebrand when small tweaks are enough. So maybe you're shifting to a new client, but maybe you can just go onto your website and change up the copy. Maybe you can just create different type of social media content. You don't have to go back and replace all the thumbnails for your reels. No one's scrolling that far back anyways. Don't flatter yourself. I do that too. I'm like, I think I need to go back and I need to replace all the thumbnails for these reels, and I'm becoming a perfectionist. Sometimes, designer, small tweaks are enough. Step back, focus on what's going to move the needle. Do you need to show up in a sales capacity? Do you need to reach out via DM to people who've connected with you asking about your services? Do you need to connect with a realtor, a contractor, take a contractor for lunch? Like the time spent on that is going to be so much more beneficial than doing a complete overhaul of a website that is working fine. Sometimes small tweaks are enough. And that is what I finally realized with my own interior design site, that everyone says, oh, I think your site's great. Yeah. Do I want it to be as beautiful as that other designer I saw who just did a rebrand? Sure. But is that really in my budget or timeline for the last quarter of this year? Do I really need that to move the needle and get the great design clients that I want? No, the clients are still reaching out to me. We're still getting great referrals. Some of them haven't even looked at my website. So sometimes small tweaks are enough. And I'm sharing this because I want this episode to hopefully cast a little bit of a, like put you at ease. If you're someone who feels like you need to do everything that you see everyone is doing, let me give you permission to not. Other times that you don't need to overhaul your brand is when you are getting clients despite your site, despite your Instagram. There are designers who don't even have websites. There are designers who do not have a presence on Instagram. Those designers are skilled at networking and sales, and it's all in person. Some of the most high-end designers that I know in my city don't even have a website. I'm not saying you don't need one. I think it's really beneficial, especially for someone who's starting out and you're just starting to grow your business. But when you're getting clients, this is me. I'm still getting clients. Maybe not like we were a year ago post-pandemic when it was like everybody and their brother wanted to renovate and decorate, but we're still getting clients. So it tells me that my website is not deterring them. And these are qualified clients too. So when you're getting clients, despite your site, resist the urge of perfectionism to spend hours upon hours updating and changing something that is already good enough when you could be spending that time working on your business, establishing internal processes so you can deliver exceptional service to your clients. Maybe it's about creating a pitch deck for outreach to potential brand partners. There's so many other ways that you could use your time that will actually move the needle. The next point I wanted to make is when you don't need to rebrand is when finances are tight. If you are financially feeling the pinch, updating your website is not going to change that. I'm sorry. This is tough love. It's just not. I thought of this example because this was me, right? I'm like, oh, I need to update my website. Like I don't have any clients. Most clients are not finding you organically via SEO on Google. It's just not the reality. If finances are tight, you need to get crystal clear on marketing tactics to get in front of clients. You need to reach out and leverage those past clients, those raving fans to get referrals. That is not the time to invest time and money when you don't have it. And then lastly, we just sort of mentioned this, but like when you're just being a perfectionist, you don't need to do a rebrand. Can you catch yourself? Can you listen to yourself? Can you hear yourself? Because truthfully, this has been me. Oh my God. And I think honestly, if this is me, I'm a creative, just like probably 99% of the people listening to this podcast. We all want to have the picture perfect Instagram. We all want to have a beautiful newsletter that goes out. We all want to have that website that just wows and makes us look like we do $1 million projects. But sometimes we're focusing our energies all the time on perfectionism, and it's holding us back from making progress. You guys know, if you've been listening long enough, that I always say progress over perfection. I really do believe in that. And I have to catch myself from time to time when I'm like, yeah, I'm going to hire this person to the site. And then I'm also going to hire that person. And then all of a sudden I look back and I think, oh, fuck, that was a total waste of money. What was I doing? What the heck was I doing? Like I literally just hired someone to completely update my entire coaching site and move it to a new platform, and it hasn't launched yet. And I'm like, why did I do that? This site is great. All it needs are some small tweaks and like maybe a little bit less pink, but the messaging is there. So catch yourself if you're being a perfectionist. And some of the times when you're being a perfectionist, it's important to look within and determine, why do I feel that way? Is it that you don't feel good enough because imposter syndrome has reared its ugly head and you're seeing all your colleagues in those little squares on Instagram and they're doing it? And so you think, oh, in order to keep up with the Joneses, I need to do it too. Hey, I'm not judging you. I do that all the time. The question is, can you catch yourself when you're in that moment? Because you could be spending that time, and I already talked about this here, spending more time on other aspects of your business. Okay. There's another episode actually that I recorded early in the podcast with Tiffany, Leigh, and it's episode number 9. That episode is titled How to Build Your Brand to Build Your Confidence. I think if you are someone who's thinking, I don't know if my brand is there, I'm kind of on the fence, Rebecca, like I still feel like I need to do it, go check out that episode. She is a brand master. She's done a really great job with creating a very clean and recognizable brand. So go listen to that episode number 9. And then there is something to be said for brand photography. And so if you are someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, well, let me know in our Facebook group, because I can record a whole episode about that and how I run a brand photography shoot and how I schedule it and how I plan my shots, because I don't think I've talked about that here. That's something that has really helped me. And fun fact, in the last little while, you guys know that I cut my bangs again, and I haven't had bangs since 2019, because then the pandemic happened, they grew out. I was like, screw this, I don't need them. And so I had all this brand photography, like so much photography of me with bangs from 2018, 2019 at like a million projects. Maybe not like a million, maybe it was like 5. And in my office. And after I cut my bangs, I turned to my team and I was like, oh, guys, you know what this means? We can reuse all that photography now because I've so many photos with me and bangs. Anyhow, I could talk more about longevity of photographs another time, but if you constantly change your haircut, it doesn't help with your brand. One time I was this is like total tangent. I was at the home show and I was speaking and I just cut my bangs, must have been 2018. And a woman came up to me and I was doing free consultations at the Reno and Decor booth at the home show. And I was going to be speaking on stage. And I think I had designed the booth even, and a big pull-up banner with a big picture of me from like the first year of my business. So I did not have bangs. And I'm there giving consultations like, oh, you should come. I'm doing a talk about design trends. Like today at 1:00, you should come. And I sort of pointed at my pull-up banner. She looked at me. She looked at the pull-up banner. This woman must have been in her like 60s. And she said to me, that's not you. And I kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, that's me. Oh, whoa. You look so different with bangs. And that to me was really eye-opening, because I realized that so much of the visual that I'm putting out there needs to be consistent and representative. So anyhow, that's a long story to share how it was very exciting to go back to bangs because I had more photography with bangs than without. All right. I hope this episode was helpful to kind of steer you in the one direction or the other. I'm not saying don't do a rebrand, but I'm hoping to help you consider the reason behind it. Are you doing it just to keep up with the Joneses? Are you doing it as a distraction from other more important tasks you need to do in your business? Or are you doing it because you are ready to level up? You have a new client you want to serve, you have a new offering, and your messaging needs a complete overhaul. Because if you're somewhere in the middle, you might be able to make small tweaks and really make a difference doing that. Okay, if you guys have questions about this, send me a DM on Instagram at Rebecca Hay Designs. I'm basically living there all day, every day. So come on over, say hi. Let me know if you want to talk more about this concept of branding. I'd be happy to get some guests in as well to talk about it. Let me know, have you recently undergone a rebrand, and what was that experience like? Okay, guys, that's all for today. I will see you soon.
The Resilient by Design podcast is produced by Vera Marquez, edited by Abby Circatella, and hosted by yours truly, Rebecca Hay.